So let me know when it's, let me know when it's being recorded, and it's being recorded. It's telling me that. Okay, great. Awesome. So it is 6:30. So since we have 37 people, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here this evening with us. My name is Dr. Christina Roop. I am first and foremost, a faculty member in the Department of Speech and Hearing Science, and I recognize some names from this summer's Introduction to Audiology class, so good to see you on tonight's Zoom. I've been at Ohio State for 20 years now, and so I can honestly say that I've been through this application process 20 times now, so I feel like this is a good lead off to help you guys get started. But the other reason why I'm here is I am the chair of our graduate studies committee. So help oversee all of our graduate programs, including the master's in speech language pathology and the doctorate of audiology. So that's me and a little bit about why I'm here. And I will let Dr. Bay introduce herself real quick.
Hi, I'm Dr. Yukyung Bae. I generally teach 4420 Anatomy, Physiology, and Science of Speech. And yeah, welcome to the important grad application session. Looking forward to seeing the session going really well.
Awesome. And then you all know Maria. Maria Roth is our undergraduate advisor, and she's here as well, so she can help us when Dr. Bay and I might get stumped on a question. I'll try and keep an eye on the chat. If you guys have questions you want to put in the chat, hopefully we'll answer them as we go along. If you want to just raise your hand and answer a question verbally, that is totally fine too. So don't feel like you have to wait until the end. If we're covering something and you're not sure, go ahead and ask a question. This is meant to be informative, but also meant to be informal. So hopefully you'll get a lot out of this. All right, so tonight is session 1 of 3 sessions that are going to occur over the next few weeks. So you'll have one next week on Tuesday the 3rd on letters of recommendation. And then on Tuesday, September 10th, did I say August 3rd or did I say September? On 9/3, and then on 9/10, we're not going to go back in time. We're going to go forward. There'll be a session on personal statements. And then we always have prospective student visitations in the fall. The one for the MASLP program will be in person on Friday, October 4th in Scott Hall, where we have a big auditorium. And then the one for audiology is going to be online on the 27th. Sorry, I need to move my computer so I can see my screen. So we always have prospective student visitations in the fall. So if you want to learn more about our programs, that is a good opportunity to do that. Okay, so tonight we are going to talk very briefly about GRE scores. You can see our topics that we have our organization or agenda for tonight. So GRE scores, just a review of the application process, some tips and advice on navigating the CSDCAS application portal, some information about the OSU Supplemental Application, talk a little bit about fee waivers if that applies to you, and then finally just some general advice on how to get through this whole process. So that is what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so GRE scores. Does OSU require GRE scores? The answer is no. Sweet, short and sweet, no.
Ooh.
The university graduate school does not require GRE scores, nor does the department. So you don't have to submit GRE scores. If you're submitting them to CSDCAS for another school that you're applying to, that's okay. That's a requirement for that other school, but at OSU, we will not be using those scores to evaluate your application. We'll see them, but we're not going to use them. So short and sweet. Nope, you don't have to worry about GRE. Okay, so just a little to give you guys an idea of how this all happens, at least from our end. So we'll talk about navigating the application system, but once you've submitted your application, it's complete and we receive it, what happens to it? So what happens is that, sorry, did someone have a question? Okay, sorry. I thought someone had a question. So once your application is complete, it is assigned to a minimum of 2 faculty members. So all of our faculty members in speech language pathology and all our faculty members in audiology participate in the review process. Each application is reviewed by a minimum of 2 faculty members, sometimes 3. And we review your entire application. So we look at all of the information that you provide in your application. So it's reviewed by faculty members. We have a rating system that we use that takes into consideration not only your academic history, but your extracurricular history and your letters of recommendation and the responses that you give to your essay prompts. What are the things that reviewers are looking for? And Dr. Bay, jump in here if I don't hit anything that you think is important. From my perspective, what I'm looking for is I'm going to look at your academic history first and foremost. That is what pops up first in the application. So academic history. So what courses did you take? Were you a speech and hearing major? Were maybe you a psychology major? And do you have all of your prerequisites? How did you do in your courses? What's your overall GPA, but what's your GPA within the major? We do look at that. That is something that CSDCAS will calculate your within major GPA. So we can compare those two. What kind of extracurricular activities did you participate in? Did you work? What kind of jobs did you work at? Did you participate in any clubs or activities at OSU? What was your role in those activities? Were you a member or were you part of the leadership team? Those are sort of those little details that we look for. Did you participate in research at all? Participating in research is not a requirement. If you're interested in research, by all means, but if you're not interested in research, you don't have to do it to check a box, that's for sure. We're looking at your letters of recommendation. So who wrote your letters of recommendation? We're looking for people who have known you academically and who can speak to your potential for graduate education. So, did you do well on that course? Did you seek out that professor or instructor during office hours? Things of that nature. Anything else, Dr. Bay, that you would mention in terms of what we're looking for? Your personal story, what makes you unique? Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think you've covered the core information that we all kind of look into when we see an application. And like I really want to see each individual applicant as a reviewer, as a person, like what
Yeah.
kind of things they've done so far. It's not like making all the checkbox lists. Like instead, we do a holistic review and we
Yes.
want your unique experience, lived experience, and how those experiences would actually contribute to our grad program. So I'm hoping that kind of adds a little more
Yeah, thank
information.
you. That was great. Yeah, so that holistic application process, we've really leaned hard into that. The faculty have come together and have decided on a review process that is very holistic. And, so the essay prompts that we have in our application really try and get at that with you. So, that is your opportunity to tell your story about you and your life and your background and your experiences and what you're hoping to achieve in the future. And that helps us with that holistic assessment. How are admissions decisions made? Well, they're made through that review process. So every application is rated, and then we take that rating and we rank our applicants, and then we make decisions on how many offers of admission we can make to fill our class size. Our class size is pretty static. meaning it doesn't really change from year to year. We, in the Masters in Speech Language Pathology, we are generally trying to fill a class size anywhere from 28 to 32, and it kind of ebbs and flows just depending on the year. It went down a little bit during COVID just because of outside placement challenges. And we're right around 28 right now, and we'll see, if we're going to be a little above that or right at 28 this coming year. In audiology, we shoot for a class size of 10, and we're usually plus or minus 2. So we usually have class sizes between 8 and 12 students. And our class sizes are pretty consistent with most universities, and really are based on the fact that we're limited by our educational clinical placements. And so we only have so many placements that we can send our students to. So that is sort of an overview of how we make those decisions. What else was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else about that. When does all this happen? So we'll talk about the application process and when things are due in terms of your application. We review applications at the end of December and into early to mid-January. And then we make our initial admissions decisions in February. So typically what happens is we'll make our initial round of admissions. We'll make offers of admission. Then we really cannot make any further offers of admission until April 15th. So we have our first round in February, and then our next round will be after April 15th. And so if you apply to OSU and you get waitlisted, that doesn't have any negative connotation in terms of your qualifications or anything like that. It just means that we get a lot of applications and we can only offer admission to so many in that first round. And it is good potential that we can offer admission to individuals who are placed on the wait list. Any questions about that before I move on? Anything I missed? Okay. I had a thought in the middle of when I was talking and I should have written it down. Okay. Okay. So the main thing that I want all of you, okay, wait, there's something in the chat. Let me pop. Is how early you submit an application taken into consideration. For instance, if an application is submitted in early November, is that looked at higher upon rather than an application in December? No, it really doesn't matter when your application is fully completed and submitted, as long as it is complete and closed by December 15th. If you complete it today versus December 15th, it doesn't matter. We review all applications the same. We don't rank one higher than the other just based on that. And you're welcome. Let me move the chat over here so I can keep an eye on that. Okay, so this is something that comes up every year, but what I really hope you will get out of tonight's session is that it is incredibly important that you take the time to read the instructions that are provided by us on our website. We have worked incredibly hard to provide you with thorough and accurate instructions that take you step by step through the application process. And we try and reiterate that through these sessions that we're hosting tonight, next week, and the following week. So please read the instructions carefully, not only on our website, our grad application instructions, but also take the time to read the CSDCAS website instructions. I was just on the CSDCAS website this afternoon looking at it and going through, and there are so many pages with so much helpful information. And I know that the CSDCAS help desk is super responsive. So if you're unsure of something about a CSDCAS, your application in CSDCAS, go directly to CSDCAS and ask them those questions because there's going to be questions about CSDCAS that we are not able to answer, and we'll just direct you to CSDCAS. So reading the application instructions, it's, I guarantee you that the majority of your questions can be answered in those texts, in those spots. So take the time, read the instructions. You'll be in really good shape. Okay, so what are our deadlines? So for CSDCAS, your application deadline is December 15th. And it does say domestic, but it's the same for domestic and international. So if you happen to be an international student, it's the same deadline, December 15th. In the past years, we had a separate deadline for international students, but we don't anymore. So everything has to be complete and verified in the CSDCAS system by December 15th. We will send you gentle reminders as it gets closer to December 15th if your application isn't complete and verified. But if it's not complete and verified by December 15th, it will not be reviewed. So everything has to be done by then. Once your OS or your CSDCAS application is complete and verified, it'll be received by Ohio State, and that will trigger the sending of the OSU Supplemental Application link. So one of the things that another message from tonight, not only read all the application instructions, but please, 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 please monitor your email. Sarah Wendell, who is our graduate studies coordinator, CSDCAS, OSU, we're all going to be sending you emails about all of these things. And, I don't want to have to tell a story about a student who, if they had just checked their email, they coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? So monitor your email carefully because reminders and these links will be sent via email. So the OSU supplemental application is due January 15th, 2025, and there are no exceptions if it's late. OSU registrar or grad admissions is very strict about this. So if you haven't received your OSU supplemental application link by January 1st, then you need to reach out to grad admissions. And I think I have that on another slide as well. So pay attention to those deadlines. You guys have plenty of time. It's August, so there's plenty of time. There's no reason to worry about that. But those deadlines are hard. There aren't any exceptions to those deadlines. So application complete status. This is super important because, this has happened in the past where we've gotten emails from prospective students in February and they're like, why wasn't my application? Why I didn't get a supplemental application? Why wasn't my application reviewed? And then we go into the system and we see that their CSDCAS application was not complete or verified. And we can't do anything about that. That is your application. You have to ensure that your status says complete or verified by December 15th. As long as it says either one of those two words, you're golden, you're good to go. But notifications of missing information are not sent. So it's really up to you to keep logging into CSDCAS to ensure that your application is moving through that process. And it's your application, it's your responsibility. We can't send reminders for those sorts of things. Okay? I don't want this to be like I'm sounding mean or anything, but there's a lot of you, there's only a few of us. And so this is part of the whole grad application experience, taking responsibility and monitoring so that as you get closer to December 15th, you're breathing easy and you're ready for your winter break with no worries. Okay, nothing in the chat, no hands up. So I'll keep going. Okay, so this was a question that came up that I think has been asked of Maria and of Sarah. What courses or transcripts or grades do I need to report to CSDCAS? And the easy answer is all of them. All of them. Doesn't matter if it was one course at Columbus State or if it was, 5 courses somewhere else, they all have to be reported. So you have to submit transcripts and report your courses and grades for all college level coursework that you have completed, whether it's here in Ohio, whether it's in another state, whether it's in another country. Failure, and this is comes straight from the CSDCAS website. Failure to report all courses will result in an unreviewed application. So make sure that when you're entering your courses and your grades that you're really thorough about that and make sure that you're ordering transcripts from every institution. Okay, other advice about navigating CSDCAS, not navigating transcripts, navigating CSDCAS. So college transcripts, official transcripts for all college level coursework, as we just mentioned in the previous slide, must be received by CSDCAS. Don't send it to OSU. So if you're have college level coursework credit from another institution, don't send the transcript to Ohio State. We're not going to do anything with it, right? It has to go directly to CSDCAS. CSDCAS verifies your transcript with the grades that you entered. OSU advising reports, so those are the things that you guys can download off of Buckeye Link, are not acceptable. That doesn't equate to an official transcript. Yes, and please don't send your transcripts to OSU. Don't pay to have your transcript sent to OSU. Oh, and look, Maria has put in the chat how to order a transcript. There's an active link there. Fantastic. Thank you. When should I submit my transcripts? Now! Exclamation point. Don't wait for your fall grades. Submit your transcripts as soon as possible so that they can be verified as soon as possible. There's a question, if you're a prerequisite student, how do you send a transcript if you do not have all completed classes before applications are due? Great question. What I would encourage you to do is go ahead and maybe Maria, you can help me with this. You do need to send a transcript, but you can do a fall update, right? So you can update your grades so a CSDCAS allows you to do this academic update. So you want to choose that option. And everybody, not just even prerequisite students, but everyone who's submitting an application should do a fall update. So you're submitting your transcripts as they are today. And then at the end of the semester, when your grades are posted, you go into CSDCAS with an academic update and you'd update your grades then. So yeah, you're not going to have all your classes completed before applications are due. We completely understand that, but it allows us to see what you've taken and what you plan to take. That's another thing. Please, when you're entering in your courses that you've completed, you're currently taking, and you plan to take, please enter all the courses that you plan to take like spring semester. That helps us to determine if you're meeting all your prerequisites. Okay, there's another question in the chat. On the CSDCAS transcript colleges attended section, there's a check if you were a double major option. If I check that, does that know that I also got a degree from that major? I am adding as a double major. Yeah, I mean, it usually shows up that someone has a double major in speech and hearing and psychology, for example. To give you your background, I got 2 associate's degree at the same time, but I am sure if I should hit add another degree option to just add it under my initial degree or check if you were a double major. Ooh, I think either one of those would be fine. Yeah, I don't, honestly, those are, I think either one of those are fine options for ensuring that the information is provided. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. Maria, would you contradict that?
I was just thinking, so are you saying you're going to check that box for the double major to list the associate's degree? Because those wouldn't be the same thing.
Yeah, so there's a double major option, and technically I was because I got 2 degrees, like one in both majors. But I didn't know if it would just automatically assume that I got the degree in both majors since I am a double major, if that makes sense. or if I should just list them as two completely separate degrees, even though I was double majoring at the time.
And you're talking about double major for the associates.
Yes, yes.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the bachelor's is required for this admission process, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
so I don't actually know how that works. That might be a CSDCAS question in terms of in terms of the associate majors, because not to discredit the associate degrees, but for the admission process you need the bachelor's degree. So the bachelor's major is what you would want to make sure is listed. I don't know where the associates come in.
Yeah, so under the it's like at a university or college, I have to add every single university and college, and then it asks, did you receive a degree at this university or college? And that's where I listed my associate's degrees, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but those degrees are separate from a major.
Gotcha.
Like they're not one and the same.
Okay, gotcha.
So if you've already listed that you earned a degree, you're referring to the associates. But when you're talking about a major,
Correct.
they're like two separate categories, right?
It does ask within that section, like what was your major and what was your degree. And then it just asks if you were a double major. But yeah, I do understand what you're saying. I think that answered my question. Thank you.
Cool.
You're welcome.
Okay. Would a college course taken online through my high school have to be logged into CSDCAS, not an AP course? So yeah, I'm going to lean on Maria on this one again, but my understanding that is if you received college credit for it and it appears on your transcript, the answer is yes. It does need to be logged into it. But if you took an online course through your high school, a college course through your high school, it depends where the credit was given. Maria, does that sound right?
Yeah, if you received college credit for it, if it's checking off a box when you came to Ohio State, or if it's on your Ohio State transcript, you're going to need the transcript that corresponds with that credit. So if you look at your advising report and you can see that there's a K credit for something you took in high school, you need that transcript. But if it was a college course taken in high school, but you didn't receive the credit like from the college, then no. So you might want to refer to your advising report to double check if you need it.
Perfect. That's what I thought. Thank you, Maria. Morgan, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Hi. Again, this is more of kind of a specific question, but hopefully others can apply this to them. In kind of the same section, should I put that I'm earning a bachelor's of arts in sciences because of my minor? So my minor is science, my major is considered arts, or should I just put bachelor's of arts because like speech and hearing is my main major and I'm not double majoring?
Yeah, Maria just entered into the chat, and that's exactly what I was going to say. You're going to say Bachelor of Arts because that's the bachelor's degree that you're earning. And I think there's a place, SHS at OSU is a BA. I think there's a place where you can enter in what your minor is as well.
Thank you.
Great questions. Thanks, guys. So yeah, transcripts, grades, don't wait. Get started on that now. And then when you're entering courses into CSDCAS, all courses must have a grade. If you're in progress or planned, then you enter that. There's an option to list that you're in progress or planned. And again, please tell us what you're planning to take. If you are taking courses in spring 2025, we want to know what those are because I imagine a lot of you will be finishing up your speech and hearing courses in spring semester. And it's really important that we know what those courses are. We do a prerequisite check on our applications, and if we don't know what you're planning on taking, that makes it harder for us. So please do that. And then again, complete the academic update at the end of fall semester. It's a great way to ensure that all your information all your most up-to-date information is in your application. And there's a link on information from CSDCAS. And again, we'll share these slides so you can get these hyperlinks. Okay. We've received a lot of questions about GPA calculation, and that can be confusing. I get confused by CSDCAS GPA calculations myself, but here we go. So CSDCAS will calculate your cumulative grade point average based on all the courses from every institution that you attended. So every grade gets counted in that GPA calculation. So it will calculate year level GPAs, so your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. So as you go, we can see, like, did you get progressively better? Did you, we can see how that GPA stayed the same or if it changed. It also will calculate GPAs based on subject category. So it makes you, when you enter a course, it makes you select a subject category. And if you're unsure of what that is, take your best guess. And then we have an overall GPA that we're able to see as well, and also within major. I don't have that on that list, but it tells us your speech and hearing major courses, what that GPA is. And so I mentioned that earlier. We can compare your within major GPA to your cumulative GPA. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Morgan, I'll get to that. So Morgan asked about the professional transcript entry, and we'll talk about that in a second. So that is what happens with your GPA. Other types of graded courses or non-graded courses. So non-graded courses that you may have taken as pass-fail or unsatisfactory, satisfactory, those do not get counted in your GPA, but please do enter them so we can see that you took those courses. A course in which you withdrew from that W does not get included in your GPA. However, if you withdrew from a course, but you got a grade, so it was a WF or a WE, that does get included, and that gets included in the calculation. They'll change that W withdraw with a failing grade to, it'll be calculated as a failing grade. So that's the difference between a W and a WF. So if you were in a class for a couple of weeks and you withdrew and you ended up with a W on your transcript, no big deal. It's not going to be calculated in your GPA. That's a question that we've gotten recently, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so the question from Morgan is about the professional transcript entry after you add and receive the transcripts you requested. The application states before PTE, you must submit and pay for your application. Once your application is submitted and we receive your transcripts, we will begin work on your application within 10 business days. So I'm interpreting this as once my entire grad school application is done and the professional transcript entry is being worked on. Yes, that's correct. Or am I interpreting that wrong? Can I get the professional entry done now? I think you have to pay for your application first. So, and they have to have received your transcripts. I don't think this doesn't mean that your application status has to be complete or verified, because it can't be complete or verified until your transcripts have been entered. So if you want to pay for, that's like an extra fee, I believe, to have that done, that professional transcript entry. Your application just needs to be submitted and paid for. Does that help? But if you're going to do that, you do need to allow for that 10 business days, right? So if you want to take advantage of that professional transcript entry, be sure that you've done everything else with your application, I would say by mid-November. So you give them enough time to complete that transcript entry. One thing about completed transcripts, letters of recommendation, when they're talking about a completed transcript to do this professional transcript entry. That doesn't include letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation can be submitted on the very last day, December 15th. And letters of recommendation don't go through like a verification process. Hopefully that answered your question. I believe you don't, yeah. Maya Berry asks if we have high school credit AP that checked off boxes in college, do we have to get a transcript sent from our high school to CSDCAS to verify those grades too? Or since they were already verified when we came to college, do we not have to? Maria, my understanding is that they have to get those transcripts.
The AP transcripts?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. That might be a CSDCAS question.
Okay, so here I looked on CSDCAS for this exact thing. So what I found on the CSDCAS website was AP courses that received college credit and appear on your transcript must be entered and marked as AP. And so I don't think you have to, do I need to submit transcripts? It didn't say you had to submit transcripts. But Maya, I would recommend that you double check with CSDCAS. That'd be a great question to shoot to them. But that is what I found about AP courses on their website. Let's see. Ava, I ordered my OSU transcript to CSDCAS on 8/15 and want to be sure that the transcript includes the current courses I'm taking. If the transcript does not include the semester courses, will that cause an issue considering I will still make an academic update later? Well, your transcript should have shown what you were planning to take for this semester. So you should be able to, if you were registered for your courses on August 15th for fall semester, they would have showed up on your transcript as planned, or and so then you can do that academic update. So I guess my answer is it depends on when you registered for classes. So Dr. Bay answered, the situation described is when the full academic update can be very helpful and useful to your review committee. Keep your schools updated with your progress and spring enrollment status. Your application will be seen as equal to others. Yep. Is there an option on CSDCAS to show that you're graduating in December? It should, and there should be. I believe so. Morgan asks, while a W will not be included in the GPA, will reviewers take a W as a red flag? I was thinking about this exact thing, and I would say if it's like a single W or maybe one or two. I mean, that happens, right? You get into a course and you're like, I'm too busy for this course. I'm going to withdraw. So no, that's not going to be taken as a red flag. But if there are like every semester multiple withdrawals, that might raise a red flag. Like, what's going on? What's happening? Why are you withdrawing from all these courses? So if it's just one or two, no, don't worry about it. But if it's more than that, you may want to address that. And that's what those personal essays are for, to address, things that show up on your transcript where you're like, yeah, I don't know if this is a red flag to an admissions committee, but let me just explain that, I was going through a rough patch and I thought I could handle these courses, and then it turned out I couldn't. So rather than failing, I withdrew. And that's, completely relatable and understandable. So that, you have an opportunity to address that if you want to.
And Morgan, probably if you actually had a W in your transcript, the next semester or in the following semester, you probably took the particular course, and that shows your academic performance in that particular course. So if that was the case, I would not really worry about having a W on your transcript.
Yeah, agreed. Anna's asking, how do we open the transcripts once they have been received by CSDCAS? I have no idea. That's a CSDCAS question. Sorry, there's going to be some questions that you're going to ask us that we're going to go, "Rah." You're going to have to go directly to CSDCAS, and that's one of them. And again, they're super helpful, so don't be afraid to reach out to them. Also had a question about repeated classes and your GPA. This is pulled straight from this information on the slide is pulled straight from the CSDCAS website. So if you had to repeat a course, so, depending on the first grade that you got, how does that impact your GPA? So Ohio State averages those two grades when it calculates your GPA. CSDCAS treats those grades independently. So it doesn't matter, and it says this, so it says it in that final bullet. So all repeated course grades are included in the CSDCAS GPA calculation. And it even says in that little section, it doesn't matter what your home institution does. This is what CSDCAS does. So if you repeated a course, and you repeated it at the same institution, you have to enter both of those, each instance of that course and the grades, and it'll get calculated that way. And I'll point out that this is why sometimes the GPA that you see on your advising report and the GPA that is calculated by CSDCAS can be different. Right. So there can be some little discrepancies or little differences between what you think your GPA is and what CSDCAS thinks it is. And that's why it's how the calculation is done. On a resume, would you recommend to put an overall GPA from the school or individual GPAs from each school? That's an interesting question. Unless your GPAs from the individual schools, yeah, I've only seen individual GPAs from each school. Yeah, if they're all the same, if you have similar GPAs from different schools, having an overall GPA, I think is fine. If they're different, and there might be reasons why they're different, then it could be.
Yeah, unless you have a very wise way to calculate your overall GPA.
Mhm.
I don't know, you can actually try based on your semester GPA, credit hour number, but I don't know if you want to go there. So it's easier to report individual school GPA. If you had an associate degree, mark it on your resume. And then if you have your current GPA from Ohio State, maybe mark it on your resume. And ultimately CSDCAS will calculate your overall GPA for us, and we're going to see that. So I don't think it's something that you have to worry about, Morgan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, before I go on, any other questions that maybe I can try and answer about CSDCAS? I do my best with CSDCAS questions, but sometimes we have to refer you. Okay. OSU Supplemental Application, you'll receive that from Graduate and Professional Admissions at Ohio State. How do you get it? Well, the only way you get it is by having a complete and verified CSDCAS application, and you'll receive an email from OSU to the email address you entered in CSDCAS. Important distinction. Whatever email address that you put in your CSDCAS application is where you're going to receive your OSU Sup app email. So if you're putting in a Gmail account or a Hotmail, or does Yahoo still exist? I don't even know. But if you're putting in a personal email address rather than your OSU email, you need to monitor that email. Okay, so you'll get it once your CSDCAS. Morgan, just a sec, we'll get to your question. You need to monitor that email address. When will I receive the SUP app? Email from OSU after your CSDCAS application reaches verified status. Verified status only occurs when the application has reached a complete. So it becomes complete, then it's verified. Once it's verified, you're done. There's nothing else you can do with that application. That's when you get your email from OSU. That OSU SUP app is due January 15th, 2025. So Morgan's asking about the personal information section in the CSDCAS application. There's a question, describe how COVID-19 has impacted your pathway to grad school. Is that a question that all grad schools will see the answer to? Yes, I believe so. Because it is not part of the individual grad school questions, and is this taken into consideration when selecting applicants? Should I treat this like any other essay question? It's on there. I think everybody sees it. It's a question that all grad schools will see. I, hmm. Is it taken into consideration when selecting applicants? It's taken into, if you choose to write something in that section, it will be taken under consideration as we do that holistic review of your application, right? So, yeah, if you choose to write something about how COVID-19 pandemic impacted your college education or your path to graduate school, we'll take that into consideration as we review the entire application. But it's not, I wouldn't say it is like it's not. How do I want to say that? It's part of the whole. Let's just leave it at that. It's part of the whole.
Dr. Rube, there's another question right above Morgan's one.
Oh, did I miss one? Thank you.
Mhm.
Do most universities follow that sub-app format? I imagine so, Elise. I imagine. I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I would hazard a guess that yes, because yeah, they want that information as well. It's a relatively simple application. It's nowhere near as involved as the CSDCAS application, so it shouldn't take you long to complete. Okay. Application fee waivers. This does apply to a few people. So CSDCAS, you can get fee waivers, but it is first come, first serve. So if you qualify for a CSDCAS fee waiver, you may, if you haven't asked for it yet, they may not be available. So CSDCAS fee is $150 for the first program and $60 for each additional program that you apply to within that system. And again, that fee assistance or waiver is first come, first serve, and only covers that initial $150 application fee. So qualification requirements are income-based or service-based. So any McNair scholars, you would qualify for that. You want to see the CSDCAS website for more information on how to access those fee waivers. For the OSU Supplemental Application, for domestic students, the fee is $60. For international, it's $70. There are waivers for qualified applicants, and this is just a matter of applying for it. It is not first come, first serve. So SROP stands for Students Who Did the Summer Research Opportunity Program, McNair Scholar, Economic Disadvantage, and you can go to the graduate admissions website at Ohio State for more information on who qualifies for that waiver. But if you feel like you fit into one of those categories, apply for that fee waiver. One less $60 fee that you have to worry about. Okay, I think we hit some of these things already. What if the subject of a course doesn't match the subjects in CSDCAS? The answer on CSDCAS that I found was, and I just went to CSDCAS and asked that same question. If you are unsure or if there's not an exact match to the subject, make your best guess. CSDCAS will help you out with that if you're unsure. What if I've completed more than one minor? So yeah, CSDCAS only allows you to enter one minor in that academic section. You can address your second minor in your personal statement or essay responses, or in the supporting information section. You can add that you completed an additional minor there. So there's places where you can do that. Do I need to submit transcripts for College Credit Plus? I was just looking this up. I believe, Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, College Credit Plus courses show up on your OSU transcript. So, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, they transfer, they're like transfer credits. So college credit plus equals transfer credits. So they come in, they are on the transcript. You must obtain a transcript from wherever you took your CCP courses through. So
Oh,
sometimes
so
I
you
think
have to.
sometimes students have told me like, well, my high school counselor was the one that facilitated that transcript, being sent to you guys. Well, you may need to go back through the high school route, or you can contact the, college or university directly.
So each university, college actually has their CCP counselor. If you don't recall how to access your transcript, go back to the counselor and see if you can actually retrieve or like access your transcript information or order your transcript and send it to CSDCAS so that we receive, not we, CSDCAS actually receives all college transcripts that you have earned your credits from.
Yeah, that's a great point. I forgot about the CCP coordinators. So yeah, if it's been a while and you don't want, I would recommend the CCP coordinator probably ahead of the high school counselor at this point.
Cool. Ruth, you had a question? Did it get answered?
I was just gonna say it was basically answered. I have gone through a master's program already, and its application process is very similar to this for SLP, and I did have to submit separate transcripts for the College Credit Plus program. So you
There you
took it through
go.
high school, but you should still try to reach out to those colleges that you took the college credit through. At least that's what I had to do, because then those applications sometimes they want those extra transcripts. So it just kind of depends. But that's what I had to do.
Thank you so much. That's voice of experience. I love it. Courses graded satisfactory, unsatisfactory. Already mentioned that you have to enter them, but they don't get calculated in your GPA. What about AP courses? We answered that already as well. Questions about the application process. Okay, so you're here, so you're doing your due diligence and you're getting all the information that's going to help you through this process. But if you have questions about this process, please, I'm going to reiterate again, read the application instructions thoroughly. Again, Sarah Wendell and I have worked really hard on that section of our website to really address common questions that are sent to us. So please try and find the answers there. And then also CSDCAS. CSDCAS is, they have amazing pages that walk you through and provide with a lot of detailed information. And they also have a help desk that can help you. Again, it happened tonight. There was a CSDCAS question I couldn't answer. We're going to refer you to CSDCAS. And then finally, you can email us. We're happy to respond to your emails. Let's see, before I continue, there's something in here. If I have done a training multiple times for a job, would I just list the initial date it took place? Yeah. You don't need to reiterate the same training over and over again. You've had that training, once is enough. And you can just say that you've attended it multiple times in the description, but you don't have to keep listing them. Great question. So Maria's just reiterating that former students have stated that the CSDCAS help desk is very helpful, so don't be afraid. I just wanted to take a moment here. We're wrapping up. I think there's only one more slide after this, but just a note about email etiquette. When you're emailing us contacts in the department, whether it's myself, Dr. Bay, Maria, or Miss Wendell, be sure that you are taking the time to write a professional and polite email inquiry. That, is just good life advice, but it's also really good advice for this situation in particular. We understand sometimes I find the application process confusing. I know that it can be confusing for you and it can be stressful. We're happy to help you through some of your questions or answer questions you may have, but please take the time to exhaust your other resources. Again, we've worked really hard to provide those resources readily available to you. So once you've done that, once you've read through the application instructions, once you've reached out to CSDCAS, then that's a really appropriate time to contact myself, Dr. Bay, Miss Wendell. And just to remind you, you're one of over 300 individuals that is applying to our grad programs. And so our ability to answer all these little questions individually can be a little overwhelming for us. So, we want to give you grace as you navigate the stressful situation. Just want that grace back in return. And, take a moment to be careful with your email requests and inquiries. Thank you. Yeah, it's the end of August. You have plenty of time, but give yourself plenty of time. Monitor your email. This is something that I know is difficult. You don't communicate in email as your primary mode of communication, but it is how we communicate with you. So monitor your OSU email, monitor the email address that you put into your application. Don't forget if you put in a different email address, if it's a Gmail or something else. Monitor your application status. Once you've done everything that you can possibly do in your application, go in and check it on a weekly basis until it hits that completed and verified status. And then breathe, just breathe. Verify that your letters of recommendation have been submitted by December 15th. Honestly, we know when the letters of recommendation are due. If you're asking faculty members for letters, we will get them submitted. They don't have to go through a verification process. Once they're uploaded, they're uploaded. But if you want to remind your professors, do it gently. Verify that your application status is complete and verified. We've talked about that a lot. And then finally, just breathe. Just breathe. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And I think that was my last slide. Here we have my contact information, Roop.2, and Dr. Bay's contact information, Bay.180. If you have questions that you're still confused after you've read through everything, please reach out. That's what we're here for. And it's closing in on an hour, so I managed to talk for an hour. Dr. Bay, any last words of advice for our students? Oh, I can't hear you. Ah, I was hearing you before. I don't know what happened. She's typing in the chat. Microphones, technology. Alexandria, I got here late, but will this recording be sent out to us via email? It won't be sent out via email, Alexandria, but we will be posting it on our website, so you can access it there. And probably give us like a day or two, but it will be up on our website. Just to clarify, paying for the application does not mean you are officially turning the application in, correct? Absolutely, yeah. Just paying for it doesn't mean that you've submitted it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I unplugged and plugged back. So easiest way to fix problem. Well, some of the questions are sort of like relevant. I wanted to say when a reviewer actually received the CSDCAS application packet, we get to see the entire packet. So if you're unsure, does this item need to go to this particular section, or does this item need to go to under this particular section? we don't have clear answers either. So we will look for some of those answers as we browse the documents. So make your best guess and we will find the answers. So don't worry about too much if you somehow placed one answer under different sections, and that's totally fine. We will get that information. So, yeah.
That's a great point. Great point. Yep. Are disciplinary transcripts also part of the transcripts you need to send to the graduation application? No. There is a question that asks about that, and you do have to answer whether or not you were involved in any disciplinary incident, and you have the opportunity to explain that.
Dr. Rube highlighted many times transcript, submit your transcript, send your transcript as soon as possible. And I remember last year we had some like downtime with the registrar's office in November. I don't know. So like some students actually panicked. Don't wait until like the December deadline time. Just do your work when
Yeah,
in the middle of fall semester.
yeah.
And Dr. Rube also highlighted checking your emails. And yes, check your emails. Check your emails.
I know we're old school and that's how we communicate. Sorry, guys. Yeah, and Maria just put in there, take advantage of that academic update to put after fall grades post. So don't wait to submit your transcripts until fall grades are official. Don't wait for that. Submit them now, and then you can do an academic update later.
Was Morgan question
Right.
answered? Paying for the applications, does that mean you're officially
Yeah,
turning?
no, I answered that, and I don't, my answer was no, it doesn't mean that you're submitting your application. Paying for it and submitting it are two different things. Last call. Is the academic update a general update? Can we add things like a new employment or just grades? It's just grades. It's just grades. Yeah, there's in this PowerPoint and on CSDCAS, you can there's a nice little description of what that is, but it's just grades. All right. I am going to thank you, Maya. I'm going to take us back to the very first slide. Give you where to go. And just remind you that a week from today, on the 3rd, we will have session 2, talking about letters of recommendation. And Maria, I'm not sure, is that Dr. Weisenberger or Dr. Bielfeld?
Dr. Billfeld's doing the letters of rec, and Dr. Weisenberger is doing the personal statements.
Statements. That's what I thought, but I figured I'd get it wrong. All right, guys. You have my contact information. You have Dr. Bay's. Again, this will be posted online, so if you want to go back through it. And so you're all very welcome. Thanks for attending and enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay cool.
Dr. Roop, sorry, I just had one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, you're fine. I'm just in the process of putting together a small presentation for the NISLA members. I'm the like president this year. And are you going to be in the next session with Dr. Bayfeld, or is that just or will you be in the other preceding sections for the next grad school?
So the next session 2 and session 3, I hadn't planned on it. No.
Okay. I was just gonna ask if you had any like big piece of advice to help like reduce the stress, or just anything that I could pass along to them. Anything that you want to throw in that I can just toss in and be like, oh, and Dr. Roop says, by the way.
One of the things I've noticed over the years is students talk to each other and kind of ramp each other up, right? So there's a lot of stressing each other out. And I would also say that if you hear something from a fellow student that is stressing you out, verify the accuracy before you spiral out. When I was routinely teaching Introduction to Audiology fall and spring semesters, I would invariably hear in fall semester students talking, and they would say things like, well, there's just no way I'm getting into Ohio State grad program because they never accept any of their own students. And I'm like, how did that, what? And, so misinformation happens. And for those of you who are still listening, of course we accept our own students. We love you. We think you're amazing, right? So honestly, year to year, about 50% or more of our master's and AUD classes are made up by our own students. So, so Ava, if you're offering bits of advice, take what you hear with a little bit of a grain of salt. Like, okay, this person told me this, but that sounds crazy. So let's verify it.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, breathe deep, take it one step at a time. Yeah, those are my like words of wisdom, I guess.
Definitely.
And good luck, everybody. You're gonna do great. I have no doubt.